You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, hello, hello. Alex here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's going to be a shorter podcast episode because I'm going to be teaching a process. And this is a process that I've been using a lot. And recently I was reminded to come on here and teach this because I was working with one of my one-on-one clients about tension buildup and the discomfort building in the body. And after I taught this, she had such a big breakthrough in terms of using this in her own life on a day-to-day basis and seeing the impact that these processes have. When it comes to processes for emotions and like energetic buildup in the body, many of us experience these all the time, and we have been the whole time, and we haven't been taught how to manage it, right? Because when you had pressure buildup, you were nervous about something, had a lot of energy, felt the tension of your parents fighting or things happening at school, and you shared that what happened. A lot of times it was, stop crying, stop whining, stop worrying, right? It's all the stuff that we need to stop doing, but no processes to actually address it. And so it's tempting to think that, I have the processes for my physical body. I eat right and I exercise, and maybe I journal about my emotions and I talk with a friend or a counselor or whoever I have. But the sensation of emotional buildup and the tension of even just the energetic buildup, even if it doesn't have to do with emotions, those are the things that we tend to not totally know how to handle. And on top of that, because we don't talk about it, there's a lot of disbelief on, I'm just imagining this happening. And I think it's important, if you're new to this kind of stuff, to invite yourself to have a beginner's mind around it, of saying I don't have to decide right now how I feel about this kind of thing. I'm just going to allow myself to experience it and make some experiential conclusions at the end of that on what I think. This happens a lot when I start working with people and we start doing the emotional processing and layers and the mindset belief remodeling and reframing and rewiring that goes into that, is that this is the first time someone has really allowed themselves to go into it I don't have to pre-decide how this goes, right? I'm just going to allow myself to experience it. And that is a really big deal for a lot of us. And so if you're yeah, I do all the other healthy stuff, it sounds nice to release tension, I just don't see how this impacts me, that's cool. You don't actually have to take other people's word for it, right? Yes, I have had a lot of success with using this process. And I would never expect you to listen to this and be like, oh yeah, totally, I understand what you're saying. You don't even have to do that. Just try it out, try it on for size, live it out, and then come to your own conclusions, because that's going to be the most powerful thing here, right? It's the same way someone had said, hey, swimming is cool, but if you never went swimming, you don't really know how you feel about it, right? And so that's the deal here. If you're, new to these processes and don't totally understand, this is not something to understand with your brain. This is something to live out. So, a process for cutting through the tension. You know how when you are, let's say you are anticipating something, a difficult conversation, maybe you want something good to happen. Let's flip the script. So instead of anticipating the negativity, you're anticipating the positive, and it's not coming, and it's not coming, it's not coming, and you're like, I could have sworn it was today, right? Oh, hey, you can't raise your hand, but I wish you could, so I could tell if you were with me here or not. Or that with the negativity, it's like, oh, I know it's coming. Oh, God, I know that's going to suck, right? Or even practical things. Oh, I'm gonna do that, the retest of my hormones or my brain chemistry. I've been doing a lot of work. Gosh, I hope this is the time it's better, right? Or even more nebulous, the tension building of energetic things, either responding to people in your environment or even external forces, things like, the moon doing things and all sorts of stuff. Now, if you've never worked in like an emergency room and things like that, you may not appreciate just how much of an impact it has on humans. Because when we're out living in our own life, it's kind of hard to tell. We just have our own cycles. Who knows if it's coincidence? But recently we were talking about this in Health Transformation Accelerator, and everyone was like, "Yeah, if you've been a bartender, if you've worked at clubs, if you have worked in healthcare, if you have worked in place where there's a lot of people, you kind of notice the pattern, right? So even if you're not so woo that you normally think about it, there's things like that, right? You're just like, it's a random Tuesday. I don't understand why I have this tension build up. For this, the tension buildup is something we really want to squirrel away from. It feels incredibly uncomfortable, and like any other normal human, you want to move away from it, right? Like, that's the equivalent of having your hand on the burner and not moving your hand. It is a completely normal response. That being said, it's different from the burning example in that when we move through things, when it comes to our emotions and energetics, that is actually how we build the trust and the strength and the power to know that we can handle them. The reason that that's different is because a burner on the stove is external to you. The emotions you hold and the energy, it can be influenced by other things, but it is being registered in you. Therefore, you can't ever move away from you. Got it? You can never be whole, cohesive, unified if you're moving away from you. So that, while the response absolutely makes sense, but you have to make the distinction on why it's different and why you're not going to go that route. If you've ever done I feel the tension, I need to reach out to this person, let me send a text message, and then you're like, oh, I got ghosted, or they, didn't respond nicely, or, oh, it's the same crap I usually get from that person. How trying to kind of sidestep it or force through it or do something else, or you feel that you don't send the text message but you go on a shopping spree or a food binge, or you're down to the bottom of the wine bottle before you even realize it. When we feel the tension building, part of this process is the fact that the reframe is there, that I have a process to release this tension. Therefore, to do that, I have to acknowledge the amount of tension that's there. This is really important. You're probably like, why can't you just tell me to do it? Here's the thing. If you try to go to this process because you're like, I just want to get it over with, right? Like, get it done. I'm sick of feeling bad. I hate to break it to you, but that's not how that works. Okay, so for this, we have to acknowledge that the tension is there and be willing to stare at it for a second. That you're not going to stay there. That's why you have the process. But you don't even know what you're dealing with. And, what is it that you are releasing the tension of if you don't acknowledge and feel the tension that's there? Just stop for a second to do that when it happens. What often will happen then is that your system goes, oh, finally, she's not denying it. It will get louder. It's not actually getting louder. You're just uncovering what you swept under the rug. So when we start this process, feeling the tension and acknowledging that it's there, you have to stop for a second. You are not going to look at it long. A lot of us are scared. I remember feeling this. You're like, God, what if I look at it and it grabs a hold and I can't move through it? What if I lose, right? What if it's stronger than I can be? That's the fear, right? And that's why you practice the processes to move through them, to train yourself to know. That doesn't mean that every time it's not uncomfortable when you look at it, but you do get better at knowing that you ultimately win, because you are the sovereignty of your own space. Why wouldn't you? There's literally no outcome that looks like you not managing it, right? And so looking at it and stopping for a second, feeling the tension, it will most likely build. That is cool. That is part of the process. You won't even be able to release it until that happens. Okay? So, as you are having the event, as you're having the emotion, you're just going to pause. You don't even have to stop what you're doing. You could be in the car, you could be driving. Just stop thinking for a second. Stop trying to figure it out with your head. Stop trying to think of what to do next, right? Just stop for a second in your internal world. You can keep doing the dishes. You can fill out the spreadsheet, whatever it is that you're doing. It's not your body that stops per se. It's your internal kind of driving the needle that stops. As you feel it crescendo, what you will notice that eventually it peaks, and there's going to be the leveling out, and sometimes there's a little bit of a drop off. If it continues to build, that is totally okay, because what's happening is that we're acknowledging it. Sometimes we have layers of that tension, the energetic, emotional tension inside our space, internal space. And because of that, you may repeat this a couple times. So what I do is I feel into it, right? I acknowledge the tension. I see it in my body. And then what I do is I envision myself holding a large glass jar with a lid. Kind of looks like a cookie jar, but it's glass, so I can see through it, and it's got a lid on it, like a twist-off lid. Okay? The lid is going to be closed. Right? You're going to have the jar in front of you. You're holding the jar in your mind's eye. And as you feel that tension, you're actually going to see it building up in the glass jar. Mine's pretty big. Like when I hold it, it's kind of like if I was holding it in real life, it would be from my pelvis up to my chest, like a pretty big thing. And I essentially allow the tension that I feel to be visually represented. I see the jar filling up. It doesn't matter what it looks like to you. It's just going to be the visual or feeling, smell, interpretation that your brain is coming up with to represent that tension, right? We can gather insight from that, but really at the same time, it doesn't matter. However it shows up, it can show up as marbles, it can show up as black gunk, it can show up as motor oil. It does not matter. And you don't even have to modify it. However it gets shown to you, however it shows up is fine. You'll feel that tension building, right? And when you are in a place where you feel like that tension is built, if you're feeling the plateau or it's even easing up a little bit, you're done. And what you're going to do is crack open the jar. You're going to release the lid and all of that tension is going to get released and move away from you. You can see it as an explosion, you can see it as fireworks, you can see it just shooting up into the sky, you can see it dropping down into the earth and getting recycled, you can see it turning into rain, it could be a unicorn. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what your brain sees it as, but what you are doing is allowing for the buildup and releasing the tension. Now, if you are seeing the jar in your mind's eye build up and you're feeling that tension build and it continues to build, at some point, crack the jar, release it, get a fresh one, and do it again. What that represents, when we do these energetic and emotional processes, each time, let's say you journal about your breakup or you journal about your health, each time you do that and you're expressing emotions, each time is a new layer. I think what keeps us really stuck is that when we do these processes, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm anxious again, or oh, I'm sad again, or oh, I feel like giving up again. And we're like, it's the same problem. But it's not. It's not. When we set the intention of releasing this from my space forever, it really is gone forever. What is underneath there is another layer. It can have the same imprint, they have the same signature, it can have the same feel to it, and it's still a layer. This is how that works. And when we reframe it as that's just another layer, I release that one, it's not that it's back, I'm getting to another one, that feels much more empowering. It's also true, right? Like, that's what, there's layers of these emotions that we've essentially swept under the rug. We're liberating them. That is really what's happening. And when we tell ourselves then the illusion, which is, oh, it's just the same thing, I never get rid of it, nothing ever changes, it's defeating. So let's not do that to ourselves when we know that that's not the essence of what's happening, right? And so if you need to repeat it, go ahead and do that a couple times. And then let yourself, before you go off thinking about the same problem again, let yourself just chill for a second and feel into what's happening. Because as you release the tension, there's going to be new information that has the opportunity to come up. Let your system do that before you dive back into the thoughts that are going on, because it's easy to get looped back in. If you're finding that hard, this type of process is really well paired with parasympathetic tools. So doing the chest thump, where you're thumping on your chest to activate the vagus nerve, humming, singing, gargling, laying with your legs up the wall for 5 to 10, 15 minutes. All of those things can assist you in calming the body down, the central nervous system, to send out the, cool your jets signal all over the body, and you can repeat the process. So these tools really, I think, are best used in tandem when we are working through this, because like I said, this isn't just emotional, just energetic, just body, just mental, right? It all goes together. It makes up all of who you are. So let's treat ourselves like we are complex creatures with lots of, facets to our beingness. I think when we honor that, we sidestep all of the questioning of like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why is this not going the same way I see it working for other people? Like, as if you know what their internal experience is, right? That all, we can let that go. You give yourself what you need, and you keep giving it to yourself until you're good. That's what that looks like. That's the parenting your own inner child. So do what you need to do to honor that, give yourself what you need, and keep going. Don't quit on yourself. All right, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads, and we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.